The Magic got this shiny new toy this offseason, so why aren't they playing with it today on Locked On Magic?
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is October 27th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossmann. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to dive into why the Magic aren't getting the most out of Desmond Bane, why that is a symptom of a bigger problem for the team. We'll do that, plus the numbers to know from 3 games already for the Orlando Magic. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. We truly appreciate all of our Orlando Magic dailies who make Locked On Magic their first listen of the day and listen 5 days a week. Appreciate all of you who are part of the show. You can find it all on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. We've been talking about this since Father's Day back in, June? It's been 4 months of anticipation, 4 months of eagerness, 4 months of excitement, 4 months of belief of what this Orlando Magic team was capable of, what this Orlando Magic team could do. We have all been super duper excited. And so obviously this weekend was a letdown. You can listen to my recaps of both the Atlanta Hawks game and the Chicago Bulls game from the last 2 episodes. But to sit here after this 3-game homestand to start the season at 1-2 and to see many of the same and familiar offensive frustrations that were supposed to be fixed by the acquisition of Desmond Bane, by the new offense and the pace the team is trying to play at, to see this team struggling with a lot of the same things, it is frustrating. Now, I will agree with the players and I will agree with everyone else, and I will warn you all, not the time for wild accusations and conclusions just yet. It's not the time to jump ship. It's not the time to necessarily panic, but it's frustrating, and frustration is the right term and the right word and the right feeling to have. Because quite frankly, this regression or this falling back into these bad habits is counteracting the potential this team has and everything that they should be trying to do. I've talked about this for years, whether it was Gary Harris, whether it was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and now whether it's Desmond Bane. When the offense is working, these guys were successful. But honestly, the clue that the offense was working was always Gary Harris got 4 threes. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope got 5, 6 threes. And now it seems like even though Desmond Bane hunts for his own shot a little bit more, and that is what makes him different and is what makes him a better player, now it's the ball needs to find Desmond Bane. And when the ball doesn't move, you get games like Saturday's game against the Chicago Bulls. You get a 2 3-point attempt game from Desmond Bane. Now, let's be clear. Despite Desmond Bane only getting 2 3-point attempts, he still scored 15 points. This is not a Gary Harris repeat. This is not a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope repeat. Desmond Bane will stay involved even if he's not getting the 3-point shots. But the Magic signed him, or the Magic acquired him to get 3-point attempts. Desmond Bane went on several podcasts and said, I am planning to shoot the most threes I've shot in my career. The Magic want me to shoot the most threes I've shot in my career. Through 3 games, that isn't happening. And again, let's just go through the numbers real fast. It's because the Magic's offense isn't operating optimally. Now, look, Bane is still giving the Magic a lot. He's averaging 17.3 points per game through these first 3 games. So, 23, I think, in the first game. He's shooting only 43.2%, which is well below his average, but getting 14.7 field goal attempts up. He's shooting 26.7% from 3 on 5 3-point attempts. He is I can do my math correctly, 4 for 15 from three. This is obviously not what the Magic signed up for. They signed up for efficiency, and he's shooting 5 3-point attempts per game, which would be the lowest since his rookie year. Quite simply, yes, Bane may not be shooting at the level that the Magic want him shooting at. He's doing okay with assists. He's doing really bad with turnovers, 3.7 turnovers per game. And some of that is just getting used to his teammates and maybe trying to do a little too much. But honestly, I would say the Magic have tried to use Desmond Bane more as an attacker and creator rather than a shooter. And again, I think this is a two-way street. I think Dez is trying a little too hard to fit in. And honestly, I would rather him take some shots. Just be the outside shooting threat. But it's all part of a bigger problem. That the Magic just simply aren't moving the ball enough. Despite the increase in pace, the Magic are at about 107 possessions per 48 minutes right now, which is insanely high. They were under 100 last year. The Magic, I think, are still top 10 in the league in pace. They're playing fast. And I would still argue that's a good thing for Orlando. If you look on synergy, all their offensive numbers are bad except for their transition. And they were bad in transition on Saturday. I'm not going to deny that. They were not good in transition on Saturday. I'm going to stall while I pull up the numbers here real fast so I can give you exact numbers. But the Magic are playing fast and still not passing the ball a ton. According to NBA.com and tracking stats from Second Spectrum, I'm going to just pull this up now. The Magic are making only 285.3 passes per game. That is in the bottom 10 in the league and total and passes per game. So that's 285.3. Last year, when they were the slowest paced team in the league, the Magic made 279.3. So again, about maybe a little bit more than a possession more, a little bit more than one more pass per possession. This is the heart of the Magic's problem. Yes, the shots didn't go in the other night, but they also didn't pass the ball enough to get shots. The Magic this season so far, 3 games, not a lot. So far this season, the Magic are averaging the 4th fewest potential assists per game. Only 40.7 potential assists per game. That a potential assist is merely you pass to an opportunity to get an assist. You pass to a shot opportunity. And this is where Desmond Bane is supposed to thrive. This is where Desmond Bane is supposed to get the most out of things. Now, in this game, in the game Saturday, the Magic only had 26 transition opportunities. They scored only 96.2 points per possession, or 96.2 points per 100 possessions in those transition opportunities. But for the season, the Magic are scoring 118.3 points per possession, points per 100 possessions in transition, according to our friends at Synergy. So, yeah, look, we can all say, and I think it's fair to say that the Magic might need to slow down so that they can execute a little bit better in the half court. We'll talk about turnovers here in a minute. But speed has been good for this team. The more transition opportunities they get, the more they can press advantages against defense, the more I think Desmond Bane will get. There's a control of tempo that they have to get, but they got the right idea there. But ultimately, what's holding them back is they don't trust each other. And that's not trust as in anything malicious or anything. It's they're still learning to play together. And they're still learning to play and trust this speed. And so all these problems are interconnected. Because once they start moving the ball and passing it more effectively, then Desmond Bane's going to get his shots. Desmond Bane's going to be that dude that the Magic thought they were going to get. How many times are we watching Paolo get doubled in the post and he's hesitant to pass the ball to the corner? That's muscle memory from last year. And again, the Magic are playing so much faster now. They're trying to make these fast decisions and they're struggling a little bit with it. There's no doubt about it. They need to simplify some things. I'm not going to pretend like everything's hunky-dory and just say, hey, keep ramming your head against that wall. Eventually it's going to break down. No, there are things they need to change. And trusting that pass, trusting that process, trusting those shots to go down and passing to those open shots, that's going to be what gets them there. And there's going to be a breakthrough at some point. Like, again, this team is way too talented. Like, despite playing so poorly in Friday's game and playing so poorly in Saturday's game, they had chances to win those games in the fourth quarter. All they needed was to wake up for 5 minutes. So if they would have woken up for the last 2 minutes of that game against Atlanta on Friday, they would have won that game. If they would have woken up for any 5-minute stretch in the fourth quarter against Chicago, they would have won that game. Again, I'm not intentionally throwing shade at Atlanta or Chicago. They won those games. They deserve to win those games. Orlando was coming from behind because they're making a ton of mistakes. But if the Magic want to make the most of this team, this roster of Desmond Bane, it's got to start with that trust. And it's got to start with moving and passing the ball. And that gets to the other big takeaways from these first 3 games. We'll go through some numbers to know about the Magic's first 3 games coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to my friends over at Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch helps you organize your accounts, track your spending, and get a better handle of your investments without having to touch a spreadsheet. Knowledge is power, and Monarch gives you the knowledge to take power over your finances. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where your money's going and how to make it work harder for you. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by friends over at Game Time. Basketball season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. The next 2 Magic home games are 2 weeks away. You got a little bit of time to get yourself going, but they're going to be high-demand games. I don't care that Boston's 0-3 right now and struggling and looking like a terrible basketball team, and Jaylen Brown might be hurt or his hairline's rubbing off on people. It's the Boston Celtics. We know there's always a lot of green in the building. Make sure it's blue. Get your tickets now, and Game Time is your ticket to the game because it's so easy to get your seat in just minutes. With Game Time, what you see is what you pay. There are no hidden fees at checkout. Plus, you can get a digital view of your seat looking down at the court so you know exactly what kind of seat you're getting and what the court is going to look like. You can even find NBA tickets for less than $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. I think we all have our theories for why the Magic are struggling so much. And look, there's plenty, and some of them are all probably a little bit true. I am an optimist. Like, I'm sorry. I know I say this every time. I am an optimist. I think a lot of the mistakes we're seeing are breaking bad habits. Just plain and simple. This team is used to playing a certain way, and they are trying to change it. And there's friction between the old way and the new way. I think some of the problems are just simply just adjusting to new players and adjusting to new thought processes and mindsets. And that's why I'm a big fan. That's why I'm kind of a bigger fan of right now, like simplifying some things, maybe scaling back the pace and ratcheting it back up when everyone's a little bit more comfortable, when everyone's a little bit more on the same page. The big number I think that defines the Magic through these first 3 games is unfortunately turnovers. I think that so much of the reason the offense is just so out of whack is like, look, there's a lack of trust in the shooting. I honestly think the second half on Friday and the whole game Saturday just had this feeling of dread of here we go again. We're back doing this again. I felt it. You felt it. I joked about it on the show. The players will never admit it, but there was just this, you could just see that lack of confidence. There's a lot of scarring. And that's not going to go away as long as like there's people with that institutional memory. It's an institutional rot. And look, there's the only way to get out of it is just to forget about it. And there's just not enough new players who are just, who knows? And I've seen people suggest like, oh, maybe the lighting in Kia Center is weird. Maybe they'll shoot better on the road. We'll talk about the road trip here in a bit. The Magic, though, are 25th in the league with a 17.7% turnover rate. They had more than 20 turnovers in each of the last 2 games. One of the reasons they beat Miami was they did a really good job, or a relatively good job, controlling their turnovers. And I would say there's a lot of aggressive turnovers. I would say there's a lot of turnovers where they're trying to make the right pass or make an extra pass when they shouldn't, and they're trying to do the right things. But there's also been a lot of sloppy turnovers. Turnovers like that Desmond Bane turnover. Desmond Bane is averaging more than 3 turnovers per game, which you would kind of expect with him learning this team still. But there have been a few turnovers where the pass is just off, they drop it, goes out of bounds, or, a lot of turnovers, frankly, in transition where they're trying to run back, they're trying to do the right thing, and they're trying to force a play instead of doing the simple thing. If I were Jamal Mosley, my message to this team was keep it simple. Simple, 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 simple. Be simple. And that will get this team, I think, where they want to go and in a better spot for them. But they got to solve the turnover problem because so many of these turnovers are just momentum killers. You could see shoulders droop, heads drop. You could see frustration building because now they're not even getting a shot. I would rather get and miss. I've said this a million times. I would rather miss a million threes than stop taking them. And I would rather get a shot than turn it over. But again, like there's just it's just a lot. It's a lot of lack of just trust in what they're doing yet. And the only way to do that is to do it and be successful. You got to build that trust. And so like the Magic are all saying like, we're trusting our process. We know this stuff works. We believe in this stuff. It's just about executing it better. And again, I sometimes I say this a lot too. It's like, I wish the problems were complicated because complicated problems make for more interesting talk and more interesting thoughts and more interesting solves. But it's just like, yeah, make shots, stop turning the ball over. You're going to do a little bit better. The ball movement is a big piece of this. It is, the Magic are forcing difficult passes. Teams are still kind of crowding them and not believing in the 3-point shooting. So you got to loosen that up somehow. It's still a lot of like learning how to make decisions quicker and speeding up your thought process. And I don't think this game is slowed down enough for the Magic to be successful at the pace that they're playing at. So I'd like to see them slow it down. And anyways, like I've talked about this, pace is one thing. Tempo is the control of that pace. And I don't think the Magic have done a good job playing at a pace that they're comfortable at. So yes, like, look, the Magic are scoring more in transition. I gave you the transition numbers. They're one of the better teams in the league at scoring in transition this year. They're averaging only 16 fast break points per game, 107 possessions per 48 minutes. They're playing at a pace that they want to play, but they've got to move the ball a lot better. They've got to get assists. They only had 13 assists or 12 assists in Saturday's game. And they got to work together a lot better. There's just been far too many times where it feels like Paolo and Franz, but I would say especially Paolo. It feels like where there's just times where both of them, and honestly, Dez will do this too. And I think a lot of players, and AB's done this, and I think AB's showed a lot more confidence offensively, which I'm happy for. It just feels like everyone's trying to do too much. And so that's where you turn the ball over when you're trying to do too much. It's that whirling dervish pass that AB made in the second half against the Bulls when he had a simple layup and he just tried to slip it to Wendell Carter over his shoulder and the pass wasn't there. And AB's as good as AB's been, and I've been really, really happy with how AB's offense has looked. He surprised me on that end. He is turning the ball over a ton. His decision making is just not great. And so, between the passing and the turnovers, the Magic aren't going to fix their problems until they fix those two things. Just plain and simple. Value your possessions, share and move the ball. That's what's going to get this thing back in the right direction. And look, we've seen them do this. We saw them do it against New Orleans in that last preseason game. We saw them do it against Miami. We saw them do it for the first half against Atlanta. It's not like they're far off. And again, the way things work, it's going to click. And, who knows? Maybe it clicks Monday. Maybe it clicks Wednesday. Once it starts clicking, you got to stack games where it clicks. And that's how you build confidence. And that's how you build this trust that it just feels like the Magic are lacking. It is, look, going 1-2 on this 3-game homestand, it's a disaster. It's not good. It's not panic-inducing. It's frustrating for sure, because who knows, that game against Atlanta might mean something. You got to go steal back those games somewhere. You don't get them back. They're gone. They're done. And now you got to figure out how to come together. And unfortunately for the Magic, they've got to figure out how to come together on the road against some teams that will be surprisingly difficult. I'm seeing a lot of fans really pitch like, oh, this road trip's no problem. Wrong. But this is a big road trip for the Magic. We'll talk a little bit about what the Magic need to do on this road trip coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. When the schedule came out, I circled these first 8 games. And I said, these first 8 games are a great challenge. These first 8 games feel like they would give the Magic an opportunity to race out to the lead. It was not like it was some crazy difficult stretch or crazy difficult schedule. It felt manageable and beatable with some good wins sprinkled inside to make it say no, this isn't some fluky thing. The Magic aren't just feasting on bad teams. They're beating some quality teams. Obviously, we had high expectations for this homestand, the first 3 games. We thought that would be a great base. All 3 are winnable games. You lose to Miami or Atlanta, not the end of the world, but all 3 very winnable games and potential chance to make a statement in the Eastern Conference, in the Southeast Division especially. And then you go on the road for what is your longest road trip of the season by both games and by time. And you get a chance to beat a big rival in Detroit, another match with the Southeast Division rival in Atlanta, a chance to beat some beatable teams, at least on paper, that you should have no problem with. Now, obviously, a lot of perception has changed. You've now gone 1-2 at home. You looked pretty anemic for 6 quarters on offense. You needed late fourth quarter comebacks in all 3 games. You're able to accomplish it in one, nearly accomplish it in another, and never quite got up off the mat in the third. And now you got to go on the road and play some teams that are playing surprisingly better. The Philadelphia 76ers tonight on Monday. A lot of people, when I tweeted out that Joel Embiid's going to be out, I saw a lot of people go, great news, makes it a lot easier for the Magic. And I'm like, actually, the Sixers have really struggled in Joel Embiid's minutes. They might be a better team without him right now. And again, I think they should be playing Joel because ultimately they will be better with Joel. But they might be better without him. And not having him on the floor for however many minutes he would play could actually harm the Magic. In any case, the Sixers have a really dynamic backcourt. Tyrese Maxey has taken another leap. We saw him in that first quarter, what he did to the Magic's defense and Magic starters with Tyus Jones in there. In that preseason game, Jalen Suggs is only going to play 3 to 4 minute spurts still. He's going to play on Monday, but he's only going to play 3 to 4 minute spurts. It's no guarantee. And at the end of the day, Philadelphia is currently sitting at, let me pull up their net rating here. Philadelphia is currently sitting at 2-0. Couple of really close wins, but 2 wins nonetheless over Charlotte and and over Boston in their first game. Boston not playing well. Charlotte playing pretty well. We'll get to them in a minute. But a 118.6 offensive rating, this team can score. Now, I trust the Magic's defense. My takeaway from the weekend was the Magic's defense got progressively better. The defense is going to be there. It's just a question of whether the offense could score. And I was telling people throughout the course of the weekend when they were saying like, oh, the Magic's offense, it wasn't elite. And I would agree it wasn't at the level it was last year. I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise. But I was like, I'm not worried about the defense. The defense is straightening itself out. It's getting used to playing at this pace. The bigger issue is whether the offense can provide the consistency to make that matter. And very clearly, they could not in the second half against Atlanta, and the defense collapsed in the fourth quarter of that game. They could not at all against Chicago, and the defense eventually collapsed in that one. This defense needs some offensive support, and this team is built to give that support, and they just aren't yet. In fact, after Dallas's win, Orlando now has the worst offense in the league through 3 games. Chicago, second worst offense in the league because Orlando's defense was really, really good. I know, again, Orlando is currently 6th in the league in defensive rating, so say what you want about anything else. The Magic's defense is doing its job right now. The Magic's defense is giving them a chance to win if they could not be the worst offense in the league. But that goes to show you that, Philadelphia is not some team to sleep on. They've got a positive net rating. They've been winning games. They've been winning close games. And they got guys that make sense and can score the basketball. Now, they're obviously not alone. And 118.6 offensive rating is 6th in the league. Sixth best offense in the league right now. Detroit is Detroit. And Detroit hasn't played a lot yet. Detroit's 2-1 at this point. Offense kind of scuttling. Their defense is pretty solid, but they're Detroit. They're a quality playoff team. That game on Wednesday is going to be tough. The game on Thursday at Charlotte is going to be a lot tougher than I think people give it credit for. Now, Charlotte demolished Washington in the second half on Sunday, but Charlotte's sitting at 2-1. Beat Brooklyn, beat Washington. So maybe not the most impressive wins, but they currently have the best offense in the league at 124.5 points per 100 possessions. And this is what Charlotte does every year when they're all healthy coming out of camp. They run, they play super fast, 106 possessions. So Orlando's playing faster than them, but they play super fast. They get up and down the court, and they have the firepower and the scoring to deal with it when they're playing well. The difference right now is Charlotte's actually defending. I know if you go to our friends at Locked On Hornets, you go really anywhere on the internet, there's this debate going on about LaMelo Ball and whether he, quote unquote, makes winning plays. And I think we'd all agree that LaMelo Ball had that struggle over his career, and he's got a lot to prove. Early in the seasons when he's typically engaged on that end, and he is very engaged on that end. He's taking strides on the defensive end, and Charlotte has been a much better, much more energetic team. Again, it's super early. It's super, super early in the season. You don't know what's going to last. You don't know what's going to be sticky, but you take teams as you play them. And Orlando right now is a team struggling to score, and Charlotte's the best offensive team in the league. So you get them on the second night of a back-to-back when Jalen Suggs likely isn't going to play. So who are you going to stick on LaMelo Ball? You're going to stick Desmond Bane? You're going to stick Franz Wagner? You got some work to do. Now, again, Charlotte doesn't have a center. Their 2 wins are Brooklyn and Washington, not exactly murderer's row, but I don't think we can be in the business of counting anything as a win because the Magic just aren't playing at a level that would suggest that they can win games easily. Now, again, I've hinted at this. The Magic are playing B and C level games and still have shots to win against postseason teams. Like Chicago can be a play-in team. Atlanta certainly is a playoff team. Miami certainly can be a playoff team, certainly a play-in team as well when they're as well. The Magic aren't playing great and still have shots to win. So, to me, that speaks to the talent level that Orlando has. But you can't sleep on any of these teams. And I don't even think you could sleep on Washington. I know everyone's ready to dismiss Washington had out of hand. And look, they just took a really bad loss against the Hornets that skew all of their stats. We're still at the stage where one really good game shifts your entire statistical profile. The Magic come out on Monday and beat the Sixers 120-90. They're going to not only have the best defense in the league, they're going to be middle of the pack in offensive rating again. So, like, I share these numbers to show you, to say, like, hey, like, don't overreact to things. Washington has been playing extremely energetically. I've been really impressed with what I've seen from Washington and some of the highlights that I've seen from them. I'm not counting them as a gimme win, even if it certainly is more possible that I think it's certainly fair to say that's the easiest game on this road trip on Saturday. And then you play Atlanta again, who he just played on the road this time, probably with Kristaps Porzingis, although he may be still dealing with the flu. Probably with Zachary Risacher by that point. And at the end of a long road trip, which can always be challenging. I counted that Atlanta game as a schedule loss, and I was ticked off that it was going to be on NBC because that's going to be the toughest game of this road trip because of the travel. And yes, Orlando will have a practice. They'll be in Atlanta for a few days, but everybody looks to come home at the end of those road trips. And so I don't think you can sit here and start counting the wins. The Magic just aren't at the level yet. They're certainly at the talent level, and they should be at this level, but we're not at the stage of the season where we can like kind of tick off wins. Well, where we say, like, if the Magic just do the bare minimum of what they're supposed to do, they're going to win. And look, that may still be true, but we haven't seen the Magic consistently do the bare minimum. We're still kind of getting a feel for what this team's identity is. And again, that's part of what the process right now is, figuring out what the formula to win is. The defense is there. And if the defense is there, they'll give themselves a chance to continue like testing some things out. But this team is still figuring out the formula. The only good news is that road trips like this, and especially at times like these, can be really galvanizing. They can be really helpful. And I think more than anything, these next 5 games, they're gonna either bring this team closer together and get them to the team that we want them to be, and the team that they know they can be. Whatever expectations you have for them, the Magic believe they're that much better. And they're not delivering what they want to deliver right now. So they're as frustrated as you are. They're more frustrated than you are. I can almost guarantee you that. This road trip needs to be a joining force. It needs to be the glue that brings this team together. And we've seen it do that in the past. In the 2024 season, the Magic played that first game at home and went immediately out west. They went 2-2 on that road trip, but they played really well. They came home energized and made their first big push to build their record into what they would ultimately become. Last year, the first road trip the first game was the game that Paolo got hurt. They went 0-5. They figured some things out. They had to learn how to play without Paolo on the road, but they came home, figured things out, and made their first big push that built their record out to be what it was. I honestly I would say that Chicago game reminded me most of the Magic's play in January and February of last year, like right after Paolo came back. This is, it reminded me most of those games. So now, what did the Magic do after that 1-6 homestand that they had in February? They went on the road and went 3-2. Got nice wins over Milwaukee, over Minnesota, and over Cleveland. And that road trip turned the season around. That road trip became a galvanizing force. And again, it was just a 3-2 road trip. They still dropped some games on that road trip. That's what this road trip has to be. This road trip has to be a galvanizing force. It has to force this team to focus on themselves. There's no family. There's no being at home. There's no being apart. These guys are going to be forced to live together for the next week and a half. And that should be a galvanizing force. That should be something that brings us together. This could be the perfect time for a road trip like this. And look, there are still challenging games. I'm not expecting the Magic to go 500. If they go 3-2, they're 4-4 on the season, heading into the first NBA Cup game against Boston. And hopefully that means some momentum. They figured some things out and they're moving in the right direction. You go 4-1 and we're frankly back on track. You go 4-1, you're 5-3. I think we all said 5-3, 6-2 would be pretty good these first 8 games. you're back on track. Right now, it's about finding your stabilizing force and coming together as a group. And that's what this road trip has to be. It won't be easy. I don't think, again, like I'm not counting any of these games as a win. I would say Washington is the easiest game. Philadelphia is going to be tough. Charlotte's going to be tough. Detroit's certainly going to be tough on the road. Atlanta's going to be tough. This is not some gimme road trip. Doing well on this road trip will be genuinely impressive and something this team has to do if they're going to be the team that we all think they can be. Going to be exciting to watch this team on the road and see what they come up with. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You can find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun places to download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can also check us out on YouTube. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my newsletter, the Orlando Magic Hub at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. We talked to Desmond Bane in the locker room after Saturday's game, chatted a little bit with him about his adjustment to coming to this team. I have an article up on that around noon on Monday, so definitely subscribe and check out the video I did after Wednesday's game, talking about how Desmond Bane changed the Magic's offense in Wednesday's game, back when the Magic had an offense that looked good. You can check that out again at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, go make Locked On Fantasy Basketball your second listen of the day. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, all part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back tomorrow to recap the Magic's game against the Philadelphia 76ers. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.